poles topped with bats. Bats! Typical Basil, wanting to remind everyone where his fame and one-time fortune came from. Bats, monsters, ghouls and ghosts. All that nonsense seemed ridiculous when there were real horrors on the news day in, day out. She pulled open the gate and it creaked loudly. Some bird, maybe a magpie, squawked back in response. Perhaps it thought another species had invaded its domain, eager to compete for the mice that roamed the gloomy red brick building, as if knowing that some day it would all be theirs. Maud slipped through the narrow gap, then pushed the gate closed behind her. Another ominous screech of metal echoed against the walls of the mansion. She shivered in the cold night air. She could hear a window creaking and banging somewhere high up. Even after all these years, the place still gave her the creeps. She hurried up the path and climbed the crumbling stone steps that led up to the oak doors of the mansion. As usual, she didn't knock, just pushed at the unlocked door and went in. She wondered, did they even lock the door in the evening after she left? Perhaps they didn't care. As far as she could see, there wasn't much worth nicking inside. Whole place just stuffed with silly rubbish from Basil's old films. Dust traps, most of it. And who was the muggins whose job it was to clean up that dust? With Basil, the perfectionist, looking on. Yes, Maud Foy. She hurried inside into the big hallway with its minstrel gallery and old pictures. She peeled off her raincoat and shivered again. Although she was now sheltered from the wind whipping around outside, it wasn't much warmer in the house. This little nightly chore would get even more difficult, more chilling, when autumn gave way to winter. Maybe it was time to look around for another job. But then, how many times had she thought that? And each time Basil, always with that smile, his face so animated, showing why he had indeed been such a big movie star, would put an arm around her and say, "Maud, dear, dear Maud, our loyal and trusted servant." Then a touch to her cheek, itself feeling a bit much, even a bit cheeky. "When the time comes, you won't be forgotten, of course." And with that lure, Maud had found it hard to leave. Would Basil indeed remember her in his will? A little something? Maybe more than a little something. A girl can dream, can't she? Perhaps there'd be enough to make that dream come true. A tidy little cottage in Spain, perhaps? Here they're going dirt cheap these days, she thought. So she stayed, smiled, fulfilled her duties as housekeeper cum cook, though Alicia sometimes fancied herself in that latter department, leaving the out-of-date kitchen an absolute mess while preparing her bucatini pomodoro. Maud hung her coat on the rack by the door near the Wellingtons, umbrellas and spare Macs, all at the ready for guests and visitors. In recent years, hardly any of them, that was for sure. Though this last month the house had been busier than usual. What with the prodigal daughter, Karina, back from her catwalks in New York, seemingly for good. Catwalks, very appropriate. Get her upset, and Karina did indeed have claws. And that funny journalist bloke lurking around the place, always watching her, his feet never making a sound, hair all slicked back like he'd put some old-fashioned cream in it. Eyes always a bit bloodshot, revealing his daily regimen. Up to no good, that one, she thought. Very shifty. Luckily, most times she was working in the house, he was either locked away in the library with Basil, working on their book project, the big biography of Basil Coates himself, or, more often, sleeping it off at the top of the house in the old servants' rooms, or, when she was home, sniffing around Karina. As if. "Oh, yes, not much goes on in this house that I don't see," thought Maud, with a satisfied smile to herself. She turned to head towards the kitchen at the rear of the house. She passed the grand staircase with its worn maroon carpet, the pattern faded. The staircase and hallway were overseen by a row of grim paintings, the bulk of them scenes of Basil in, as he described them, my most important movie roles. Basil as a vampire, Basil in a pith helmet opening a sarcophagus, Basil in a lab ready to bring some monstrosity to life. Like the house, most of the paintings were dark and creepy. But then a few also featured Alicia, back when she was an ingenue, looking stunningly beautiful, her dark Mediterranean beauty absolutely striking. Maud walked down the long hallway to the kitchen area, going through the evening's chores in her mind. Get the kettle on, see to some biscuits and cakes, clean up any dangling things from the night's dinner, a Dover sole and a simple romaine salad, then lay the table for tomorrow's breakfast. Basil certainly did like to take care of himself, eating healthy, staying as active as he could. A few steps into the kitchen, floorboards creaking. Suddenly, a shrill scream reached every part of the stone house. Maud froze. And again a scream, now mixed with a man's voice, Basil for sure, babbling loudly. Maud felt her heart race as she turned, for a moment frozen on that spot with the terrifying sounds slicing the air like a knife, until she shook off her own fear and hurried as fast as her legs could carry her, which wasn't fast at all, to the stairs and up, thinking something must have happened up there, like what happened last week, and the week before, something bad. Chapter 2. The Third Incident. Maud's feet hit the stairs, her hand holding onto the rail tightly. Not in the best shape, this hurrying to the screaming above had made her breathless, even a little dizzy. When she got to the landing, she worked out where the noises were coming from. The master bedroom, one of the gloomier rooms in this gloomy house. But the screams had changed to sobbing, and now Basil's voice, intelligible words, "My God, I don't understand." And, still breathless, Maud walked slowly towards the bedroom. At the doorway she paused, took a breath. Whatever would she see on the other side? The bedroom empty, lights low. Maud turned to see a sliver of cold light from the half-open bathroom door, shadows moving. She crossed the room and gave the door a tentative push. The bathroom, cold, clinical, white tiles on the floor, and dingy white walls like a 19th-century operating theatre. And there, backed up against a towel rack, Basil, holding Alicia close, both of them shaking their heads, standing as if huddled against something incredibly horrible. She heard water running. The bath was across the room, not modern, of course, none of those fancy jacuzzi jets. The ancient tub, claw-footed, something that the mistress of the house liked to enjoy with candles dotting the room, always with her airs, everything so fancy, like she was blooming royalty. But when Maud turned from the shaken couple to that tub, she saw the tap spitting out not a stream of water, but blood. Blood flowing, splashing into the tub, sending up spits and drops of red onto the hospital-white porcelain of the walls. "My God," Maud said, her hand drawn instinctively to her chest, now backing away from the gory vision. She turned back to Basil, the old coot looking as if he had seen the Grim Reaper. The three of them sat in the kitchen, each one huddled over the tea that Maud had prepared. Basil shook his head, an arm around Alicia, whose radiant face, still beautiful even aged 60, was now looking grim, angry. Not a lady to tussle with, Maud knew. But for a moment nobody said anything, until finally Maud felt she had to speak. "Mr. Coates." Basil was never the one for dropping formalities among the staff, even when that staff was reduced to 2 or 3. "Perhaps you'd better call the police in Cherringham. Let them know it's happened again." A nod, Basil still keeping his eyes focused on the distance. Maud had turned the tap off, no easy task being so close to the tub of blood. But then, when she was a foot or so away, she could tell it wasn't blood. Red, oh yes, thick and syrupy, but not real blood. Then the questions. How did someone do that?